She later told me she always thought I would come crawling back, but I never did. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Zone Stories. Today we have a story where this woman got caught by her BF, and she couldn't believe her BF would do something like this. Let's see what really happened. My story started when I was 25 years old, living in a decent-sized town in northern Arizona. I had begun dating a woman who I was friends with for several months and quickly grown very fond of. She had a son from a previous relationship. I later found out that he was the result of cheating on her first husband. His name was Nick, and he and I got along great. He called me dad, and I would beam a smile from ear to ear every time I heard him say it. I proposed after only 13 months of dating, and we got a small apartment together right away. I had never been happier. My family loved her. Her family tolerated me, but we very obviously not happy with our engagement. Whenever they came to visit, it seemed to me like I was always bothering them, so I eventually just started avoiding them when they were around. My fiancé hated when I hid from them, but it was easier for me to deal with her a little than her parents' constant criticism. Well, one day they showed up with a guy about my age. This guy was calling Emily sweetie and babe right in front of me, almost as if he was trying to get under my skin. I've always been a bit of the jealous type, and this dude, Eric, after several hours of him acting as if he was her BF and her seeming to be okay with it, I had had enough and said something like, "Well, I can see I'm not needed here," and I just left. I stayed gone for about 5 hours or so, just driving around town. When I got back home, nobody was there. No note informing me of their whereabouts or anything. This was a Friday. I stayed there alone in the apartment all weekend. Finally, on Sunday evening around 8 p.m., she came through the door expecting a big argument and a line of questioning from me. I only had 2 questions though. Who was Eric? And where have you been? So that's when I find out Eric was one of her exes that she had failed to mention. Turns out, he had recently moved back to town after dropping out of college. They had all gone to Phoenix for the weekend to attend a festival that she didn't think I would be interested in. And I didn't press any further. The alarm bells were going off, and I knew immediately just by the way she was acting. No eye contact at first, then overly smiling, trying to feign happiness to see after a while. I showed no emotion, but she knew I was furious. I could tell something had happened with Eric, and her trying to act normal through her nervousness was very telling. I told her I was glad they all had a good time, and I went to bed. She soon followed and did her best to spoon up with me as my back was turned to her, but I'm sure she could sense the tension, and the cuddling stopped as soon as it started. Mind you, this was a woman who would throw a fit if I even went to the grocery store without her, because she thought I would be ogling all the other girls there, which I never did, as I thought my girl was prettier than pretty much every other girl in town. We usually got off work about the same time, and when she got home, I grabbed her and started caressing her. This caught her off guard, but she went with it, and we soon found ourselves on the couch tearing off each other's clothes. Our life was always amazing. I knew all the things she liked, and would frequently switch them up as to keep her guessing. I could always get her off several times in every love-making session we had. I knew she was faking, because she always left a giant wet spot on the bed. Anyway, when I started working my way down, caressing her chest and belly, I noticed what appeared to be bruises around her breasts. When I asked what they were, she covered them with her hands and rolled out from under me, exposing her backside, and a very obvious handprint bruise on her right cheek. I calmly said, "Oh, I guess I'm not the only guy that's been here lately." She said, "What is that supposed to mean?" I just told her to go look at her back in the mirror. When she did that, she tried to stutter out some excuse as to how the handprint got there, but stopped mid-sentence as she too could tell I wasn't going to buy it. After that, I simply said, "I'm going to the bedroom and I'm packing my stuff." I had done this a few times before during our biggest fights, and had gone to stay in a small trailer on my dad's property across town. I then said this, "I need you to promise me something." Through her tears, she asked what it was. I said, "I need you to promise that you won't come out to the trailer and beg me to come back like all the times before. If you do, I will no doubt cave in and come back, because you always say the things I want so badly to hear come from your lips, and we will certainly find ourselves right back here again before long." She asked if we could talk first, to which I replied that I couldn't right then, because I would probably say some mean stuff that would only worsen the situation. I then packed 2 suitcases and left the apartment that we shared. I cried, because I knew deep down it would be the last time I would see the place where I thought our little patchwork family was going to start. I hugged Nick on my way out. He was just getting back from playing with his best friend in the big granite rocks that surrounded our apartment complex. He was very confused when he saw the tears in my eyes and those of his mother. I just told him that his mom would explain what was happening, and I left. What followed were 3 months of incredible heartbreak and feelings of loneliness. My heart hurts, and at times I felt as if I couldn't breathe. Every day it got worse and worse until I just couldn't take it anymore. I had always gotten so angry when in the past I had heard of someone ending themselves over a failed relationship. I saw them as weak and would tell myself I would handle something like that like a man. Suddenly there I was. I had tried everything. Exercise, talking to friends and family. I couldn't afford a therapist, so I didn't bother to look for one. My ex had kept her promise and gave me space. She later told me she always thought I would come crawling back, but I never did. I just needed the hurting to stop. I saw only one way to make it do that. I had been trying all one Saturday evening to get the guts to do it. I had tasted the barrel of my pistol several times that day already and chickened out every time. Finally, at about 2 a.m., I felt like this was it. I started to take some deep breaths and put the barrel in my mouth for the last time. My fingers slowly pressed down, and that's when it happened. Ring, ring, my phone started ringing. I practically dove on it, sure I would hear my ex begging me to just come back, but no. When I said, "Hello," it was my mother's voice that came through. She simply said, "Oh, thank God." I said, "Mom." She said, "I just woke up and felt like I needed to call you. Are you all right?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't stop crying. She said, "Sweetheart, just calm down and give me 10 minutes. She then hung up, and 10 minutes later I saw the headlights of her car pull into my driveway. She didn't knock. She just came in and wrapped her arms around me, and we cried together for a long time. She then saw what I had been trying to get the guts do all that day, and took my piece and put it in her car. Once she felt like I was doing okay, she left, but soon came back with a little Jack Russell puppy. I don't know where she got it, but she handed him to me and said something along the lines of needing something to love. I named him Dozer because he was asleep. I've never been very clever with pet names, and so began my journey back to life. I started to believe in a higher power that night. I don't know if there is a God, but I do know that there is something out there that I can't explain. Call it a motherly connection. Call it whatever you want. All I know for sure is my mom saved my life that night. Dozer turned out to be the best dog ever. He and I formed a bond that I couldn't compare to even my closest human friend. It almost seemed like he understood when I talked to him, and I always talked to him like he was a person. Even my friends and family would comment from time to time about it. So there it is, the reason for the title of my post. Every word of it is true. You could ask my mom. Thank you for letting me share. Edit. This all happened many years ago. I never saw Nick again. I moved to a smaller town about an hour drive south of where X lived. Dozer lived a great life. I made sure of that. Spoiled him every day. Had to have him put down eventually due to age. Miss him terribly though. To be honest, I was pretty scared of what that relationship has done to my mind. Well, I guess it's what I let it do. Either way, I wanted to get away and stay away from her. I hate to say it, but I never really healed from that. I never had another relationship that lasted more than 2 months. It's been a lonely life, but I don't think I would survive another situation like that. He should take some time in therapy or consume resources for better self-esteem. No one can be more important than him. He deserves the best. It brings me no pleasure to report that even after 10 years, the pain does not leave completely. It can only be buried and sometimes dug up again later. I thought I had healed and that we could have a mature conversation. I thought I couldn't be affected by anything she had to say because I've moved on and in a new happy relationship. But I was wrong. Some background context, I guess. We first met when we were both 18, moving out of our parents' house for the first time. Both of us were leaving toxic situations and met through a mutual friend who was my roommate at the time. So she moved in with both of us only a few weeks after I did. We connected immediately and became best friends very quickly. We spent the next few years finding our way in the adult world and melting our brains with a heroic amount of hallucinogens. I had never felt that close to anyone in my life before. I opened myself up to the very depths of my soul. So many people told us that we belonged together, But when she would get upset, it was like unleashing the worst. It was like her eyes would roll back into her head like a shark going for a bite. She hit me in front of my friends. She broke my glasses, which by the way, nobody else was ever there for me when I needed support. She was my only emotional support. The most I would get from anyone would be, "You okay, man?" And I would reply, "Yeah." I tried so hard to make things better. I tried to show her kindness and acceptance in hopes that we would grow together. We eventually moved to a new house, and one day our roommates decided to throw a party. I had to work earlier that day, but got off before the party ended. I got home, and she was sloppy wasted. There were dozens of my school classmates there, and when I walked in the door, the look on everyone's face when they saw me told me everything I needed to know. She started yelling at me as soon as she saw me. I don't even remember what for. I responded with something along the lines of "Chill out, you're drunk," and she slapped me across the face in front of everyone. Nobody moved a muscle. I tried to find somewhere I could be alone for a minute. I went into our bedroom and closed the door, but she followed me. I asked for some space and she wouldn't stop yelling at me. I got up and tried to find somewhere else, but no matter how much I begged, she would not leave me alone. I ended up cowering in the corner begging to be left alone in a house full of my friends, while she screamed her head off at me. One of her friends eventually got her to calm down, and told her she could go stay with her for a few days to chill out. I said I needed some time to clear my head, and asked that we not see each other for a few days. So she left and took all her stuff with her, which wasn't much. Admittedly, we were very poor since I was the only one working and paying our bills. After a few days, I had processed my emotions and asked that we see each other again. But it was too late. The damage was done. She continued to stay with her friend, but we started talking every day again. She said we needed a break from our relationship, but in the same breath tell me she loves me and misses me. We continued to hang out together, and would still hook up occasionally, but much less frequently than before. This was one of the most emotionally confusing times of my life. She would act like my partner in every way, but refused to agree to move back in with me. This went on for months. Even 10 months later, I went to see her and she caressed me, and told me she loved me. Not long after that, I found out the real reason. It turns out she had met another guy about 2 weeks after that big fight, and she immediately fell in love with him. I discovered this by finding a social media post that she thought I couldn't see. She had been in a new relationship for almost an entire year, stringing me along clueless the entire time. That was the most emotionally painful thing I have ever experienced in my life, and nothing else even comes remotely close. I had painful twitches in my heart muscles for months, to the point that I was concerned it might give up one day. I could barely think straight. It's hard to put to words the absolute depths of anguish I found myself in. I confronted her with a message and asked for explanation. But no matter what she said after that point, nothing made it make any more sense. She would say things like, "I didn't want to lose you as a friend. I didn't want to hurt you." But the more I begged for explanation, the more frustrated I felt. There are no answers that would have satisfied me. We realized that continuing to talk was not going to work out. We had to stop communicating, so we did. At first she blocked me on all social media, but eventually we were friends on social media again. She continued to stay with this new guy, and ended up marrying him a few years later. Meanwhile, I struggled to pick up the pieces of myself I had left and move on. This experience absolutely decimated my confidence in myself, and the sad reality is that women are repelled by a depressed man with zero confidence. I managed some dates and hookups here and there, but it took me 2 years to get into another relationship after that. My emotional state has really never been the same since then. I feel a lot more numb, and it's like nothing really hurts me anymore in comparison to the extreme of what I've felt before. It's hard for me to cry at all anymore. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I'm happy in my current relationship, and feel like it's been long enough that I've been able to heal. It's been almost 10 years since we separated. She sends me a private message cause she saw a post I made about an upcoming show and wanted to talk about it. We haven't really spoken at all since we cut off communication all those years ago, so I figured let's put this to rest and move on. At first things were great. We had so many things to catch up on and reminisce. But the inevitable happens when the topic of conversation finally reached a post-mortem on our breakup. I prepared myself for whatever she had to say. She's still married to the guy she left me for. She explained that she was just in a bad mental state at the time. She explained that as soon as she met her new guy, she fell in love with him immediately, but never intended to go looking for a new relationship. Reading this flooded me with those painful memories and freshened the wound of knowing she was out there looking for anyone else while I was right there waiting for her. I really don't know what I was expecting, but ended up feeling pretty hurt. I thought that given this much time, we would have matured enough and healed so that we could have these conversations. Neither of us are the same person we were 10 years ago, but I ended up burning myself once again. I should be happy because I have a great relationship with my current partner who treats me so well. But it just feels like that wound never actually heals. It just gets buried with time until we don't have to think about it anymore. That feeling of rejection, betrayal, and abandonment still hurts. I don't want to get back with my ex at all, even remotely. I really don't want to deal with her issues again. We've since stopped communication again because she went back to her gaslighting ways. I just want that pain to actually heal, not just bury it again. He thought after 10 years she'd have grown. I'm not so sure. That looks like blame shifting, blaming all these things that aren't her. It may always hurt because his reality was stolen from him. She'd say one thing and do another. It's okay to accept that hurts. The other side to this, though, is to learn a lesson. She hasn't changed after 10 years, not in a growth sense. Accepting that she was capable of wounding him, and that will always be who she is central, I think, to accepting reality. Instead of extending your empathy, thinking she's grown somehow. 10 years is a long time. He's showing his strength.